Hi, so we're here today converting customary units. Converting just means that you are changing units into another unit. In this case, we're talking about measurements, so maybe changing cups into gallons, inches into feet. It's actually the same thing we've been doing. We did this when we converted fractions as well. When we had fourths, but we needed eighths, we converted. We changed the fourths into eighths. We had to change them into the same size unit. That's the same thing we're going to do with measurement. We're going to find a common unit and change one of them into the other unit. It's hard to compare when things are in different sizes. That's the same thing we discovered also when we were working with fractions. It's hard to really tell if somebody is 48 inches tall and somebody else is 5 feet tall. It's hard to say who's taller or who's shorter if they're not standing right next to each other. But if you change 5 feet into inches or 48 inches into feet, then you'll know for sure who's taller, who's shorter, and you'll be able to compare them better because they'll be over in the same unit. So either both be inches or they'll both be feet. You're either going to change it from the smaller unit to the larger, or you're going to go the other way around. You're always going to use one of the units that's already there, and you're going to change the other one to match it. So if you're working with inches and feet, you're going to decide whether you're going to change them both over to inches, whether you're going to change them both over to feet. Here is our example. Malia wants to sew a border 3 yards long for a quilt. She has 3 pieces of purple ribbon, each 70 inches long. Does she have enough ribbon? So I know how much ribbon she has. She has 3 pieces, and each of those pieces is 70 inches long. So when I multiply that, I get 210 inches. So I know she has 210 inches of fabric, but I don't know if that's enough for the quilt because the quilt needs 3 yards of ribbon. So I have to figure out, is 210 inches enough for the 3 yards? I'm going to have to convert, which means I'm either going to change the inches into yards or the yards into inches. I actually have a choice in how I want to set it up. I can either change the 210 inches over to yards, see how many yards that is, or I can see how many inches she needs to make 3 yards. I can see how many inches it would take to make 3 yards. If we change yards into inches, I get to multiply to see how many inches it takes to make 3 yards. And I like to go that way. I would prefer to multiply over dividing if I have a choice. So I just try to set it up in a way that I can multiply, which means if I start with the larger unit and change it into the smaller units, I get to multiply. So I, in this case, would change the 3 yards over to inches and see how many inches it takes to make the 3 yards. So I know 3 times 36 is 108 inches. So I know there's 108 inches in 3 yards. Well, she has 210 inches. She only needs 108 inches. So does she have enough? Yes, she has enough. On the other hand, if you wanted to go the other way, you can divide. So over here, I have my example for that, where I started to divide. I took the 210 and divided it into 36 inches, and I started dividing. And once I got a 5 up there on top, then I knew that I was going to be okay because it's going to make 5 yards plus there is some extra. So it's actually going to make more than 5 yards. She only needs 3 yards. So once I got that started, I actually didn't have to go any further. Once I knew that was enough to make at least 5 yards, well, then of course it's enough to make 3. But as we know, division can be tricky too. So if you're going from a smaller to a larger unit, you're going to need to divide. But if you want to avoid that, I would just try to set up your problem so that you can always go from a larger unit to a smaller unit. That way you can multiply. See you next time.